time now finding out about a study examining how former professional footballers fare with muscular and skeletal injuries compared with the wider population. Professor Weiya Zhang is the study's chief investigator, professor of epidemiology at the University of Nottingham. Thanks very much indeed for coming on. Could you just tell us what you, just so we're clear, what you were setting out to discover with this study and how you've gone about it?
Thanks for asking. Football obviously is an amazing game which attract millions, including myself. As an epidemiologist, I am more concerned of the long-term consequences due to repetitive injuries from football. For example, like repeated foot and ankle injuries and concussion as well. Okay. So that's why we actually did a study about 7 years ago looking into knee osteoarthritis compare footballer and general population controls. We did find footballer actually are more likely to have total joint replacement because of arthritis. And this time around, and we are more interested in another joint, which is very vulnerable to be injured during the games. That is foot and ankle. Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, we're also interested in concussions and the consequences of concussions. For example, like dementia at a later stage of life. So that actually make us to set up these studies and try to focus on these two conditions. One is foot and ankle osteoarthritis, and another is dementia.
So you take a group of former footballers and a control group, as you put it, of people who haven't been former footballers, which is the majority of us, and just compare sort of how they fared. I just wonder what is surprising here. I mean, on the face of it, you would probably expect the footballers to have more issues.
Yes, of course, yeah. But I think this, but the evidence on that is we're talking about footballer more likely to have some sort of conditions, but we don't have evidence to support that. That's the first step. We try to see whether truly footballer are more likely to have certain conditions like musculoskeletal than the general population. And then we move on to why they have this, especially those individual risk factors, which would be useful for us to really protect them during the career period.
Okay. So then we can find out what we can do to mitigate the risks of those injuries happening. Now, I know you recruited a football legend certainly in the Nottingham area. That's Notts County's all-time top goal scorer, been taking part in this study too, Les Brad. Hi, Les. How did you? Thanks very much for coming on. How did you get involved in this?
Hi, Adrian. How did I get involved? Well, going back 8 years, I did have total knee replacement, and following the operation, I had contact from the PFA, from Nottingham University, from Nottingham City Hospital, asking if I would participate in a study with the ankles, the knees, and with the dementia, like you've just been talking about. And so going back to my younger days, when the word cancer was mentioned, that was the finish. There was no cure. And I thought back over the years, there have been so many people that have contributed, helping to make that not a word that defines the end anymore. There's so much work gone on. And so I thought I'm going to get involved in anything that I can to help if people are suffering with arthritic joints, with knees and ankles, and why not? That's where I come from.
And so what kind of nick were you in when your career came to an end, let's say when you were 40 years old?
I've been very active. I finished at the age of 35, and I've carried on working in football on the commercial side, both with Forest and Notts, and I've enjoyed golf. That's been my sort of competitive nature fulfilled through following the end of football. So yeah, that has been fine. In terms of injuries, I didn't really feel anything until possibly I was around 60 years of age, and then I started to get pains in my left knee. And through meetings with the surgeon that eventually did the operation, he believed that because I'd had operations during my football career, it had sort of increased the activity of arthritis in that knee that meant it needed to be replaced.
Okay, so did you seem to be struggling more than your mates of a similar age who hadn't been footballers?
I never really thought about it in that way. I suppose you have to think when you look back. Yes, playing sport, any form of sport, any form of activity, collisions, it could cause issues in later life. I don't know, but it wouldn't have stopped me playing. Whatever.
No. So I mean,
as one of your old friends, probably John Weil from your supported days of West Brom, had many great times with battles with John.
Yeah, no, I saw him. I saw him not long ago, and he's still in fine fettle, I must say. But
fantastic.
Professor Weiya, something important to get across here is that you're at risk of greater muscle and sort of bone injuries and joints, but overall, you are going to be more healthy, I would hope, than somebody who hasn't played high-level sport through their life.
Well, Adrian, I'm very pleased to say that, really. I think what we have found from our previous studies is really footballers more likely to have musculoskeletal problem, but they are less likely to have cardiovascular, diabetes, and other cancers and other conditions. Like Southgate said, we will know really right at the beginning what will take up. So it can't be all the harmful things for you. It could be good, could be bad. So in general, actually, footballers are more healthier. Because we're coming out of the result also, multimorbidity, for example, is another good example. Old people always get more than 2 conditions. We call them multimorbidities. Football actually got less than the general population control.
Okay, and I mean, it's difficult to monitor people who haven't been professional footballers, but might well have been, very active in football, training and playing every week without being professional footballers, playing at a decent or at least enthusiastic amateur level. Now, presumably, the same kind of thing will apply to them, and they wouldn't have had the medical supervision along the way.
Yes, there are some studies looking into amateur footballers, and that is actually quite important reference, as you recognized right at the beginning. Compared to the general population, obviously, there are some sort of uncomparable issue there, isn't it? Whereas if you use amateur sort of footballers, just try to see how different between professional and amateur footballers. So that would something we will actually after try to find further, really.
Thank you. Thanks both very much indeed for coming on. That's Professor Weiya Zhang from the University of Nottingham, and also great to have on Les Brad, Notts County legend, who's been taking part in this study too. Thanks very much for that. Let's go back to sort of buffet confessions.